point, we have a part in the program for communication and public response. So this will be the part of the program where the two people who want to speak at the beginning will be recognized. So I'll just call them as I see them. Ms. Josie Dean, if you want to stand up and speak, you may do so.
Yeah, I'm Josie Dean, and I'm with RCTT. And I had a lot of phone calls about the letter Mr. Brown had wrote, and I was confused about what was going on. So I just come today as a citizen, number one, to say when we sit on boards and stuff, there's certain things that we can't say, and there's certain things that we shouldn't say. You know, whatever we got our personal opinions is one thing, but when you with the public and you sit on that board, you're talking about all of us. And I'm not a slow Negro, and ain't nothing slow about me. You know, so you can't knock all us in the same vat. And we don't fought too hard to try to get this community straight. And we don't need to have this kind of stuff coming up in our neighborhood now, because this is just a distraction, and we're not going through the distractions. So that's my piece, and that's all I got to say about the situation.
Ms. Dean, thank you for your comments. Okay, the next person is Shorter. Mr. Shorter.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Pastor J. DeLand Shorter. I'm a pastor in what would be considered North Rockdale. In reference to what my colleague, Ms. Josephine, has spoken to, I'm quite concerned about the words that have been written in this particular blog. I understand all of our right to free speech, but there comes an issue when free speech must be governed by proper conduct, or it must be governed by the people. For if I were to say in this room, fire, that would be considered criminal because there is no fire, but it would create a public harm. And I really believe that the comments that were made in reference to black paint, and then for those individuals that were named specifically, such as our chairman and CEO, one of our county commissioners, and our court clerk by name, that is not conducive of proper behavior, especially when we are looking at a board that must serve an entire community. One's statements would reflect even the Board of Elections. By one's comment, it could be granted that all of you feel this way. And if that is the case, then that speech must be governed. It must be met with some measure of candor, some measure of restraint. And I feel that because there was no restraint in the comment, there was no candor in the comment, to openly call out public officials with no veracity or proof behind their statement is irresponsible. And that is not the action that we should have on our Board of Elections. And that being said, I would believe and would think that Mr. Brown, recognizing possibly the error of his ways, might consider removing himself or recusing himself from this Board of Elections simply because he has painted a picture of Rockdale that is racist and unacceptable.
Thank you, Mr. Shorter, for your comments. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
This is a letter from Dorian Williams, the newly elected chair of the Rockdale Democratic Party. That says to Cynthia Welch, Rockdale County Board of Elections Supervisor, William Tarr, Chair of the Board of Elections, Johnny Brown, First Vice Chair, Republican Party appointee, and Karen James, Democratic Party appointee. I regret that I am unable to be here in person to address you as I am in California with my mother who is very ill. But I have asked Carol Copeland to read this letter that I have written to the members of the Board of Elections. I appreciate the work that this board did in carrying out the general election in November 2012. It was organized, efficient, and free from the problems that many of the other counties and states exhibited on election day. Thank you. My concern today is with the guest editorial written by Johnny Brown and published on Edward Tracy's website concerning a racial commentary on the newly elected officials. Let me provide you with just one quote from his text. In this metaphor, Rockdale County has been run by a shiny white plane titled The Spirit of Rockdale for over 160 years. Mr. Brown offers this explanation of changes in other counties, implying that this is also happening in Rockdale. The other planes were having their white paint slowly removed, a little at a time, and being replaced with shiny black paint. The shiny black paint seemed to be the new trend, but once it covered the majority of the plane became slow and sluggish. They were really on time and were never under budget. The black paint didn't do a good job of protecting the plane. It was like it almost encouraged rust. First off, I would like to say unequivocally that our Democratic elected officials are under the same obligation to protect and improve our beloved Rockdale County as all previous and any future elected officers. The voters will hold them accountable. Secondly, I assure you that the Rockdale Democratic Party is interested in the same kinds of things that Republicans are interested in: education, job creation, safety, living within our means, and community well-being. Those goals are best established and accomplished through diligence, hard work, and cooperation among all members of Rockdale County, regardless of political affiliation. Members of the Board of Elections are specifically charged with making sure that all elections are carried out in a fair manner without regard to race, religion, gender, sexual preference, or any other means of discrimination. With the publishing of this editorial, I seriously question Mr. Brown's ability to assure the voters of Rockdale County that the election concerns can be and will be heard fairly and equitably. I would call immediately for Mr. Brown's resignation from this board as Republican appointee. Rockdale County cannot tolerate this overt racism and divisiveness from a sitting member of the Rockdale County Board of Elections. I would just like to say that before each public meeting, governmental meeting, we stand and face the flag and we do a pledge of allegiance to the flag, and it says one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Last night, Mayor Mills also paraphrased his favorite president, which was Abraham Lincoln, and said, "A house divided against itself will fall," paraphrased. Rockdale County, it is time out for this divisiveness. All of our elected officials are qualified and meet the requirements, and we need to come together and work with them. We cannot put up with this foolishness. So what I'm asking for today is for the board to take a vote for Mr. Brown's removal. And once that vote is established, then it could go before the judge as a Superior Court, and then he make a decision. We have to let other people see what's going on. I live here, I'm a resident here, and it's not about black or white or Democrat or Republican. We're a small community, and we need to begin to work together.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. The next person is Jim Rappo.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. Over the last 3 years, my wife and I have been coming to these meetings probably more than any other regular citizen in Rockdale County. There was about a year of dysfunctionality in this board. It took Judge Nation to solve that dysfunctionality. Unfortunately, I didn't see people coming to the meetings. In fact, there were a number of meetings when we were the only ones sitting here at the meeting. And I didn't see anybody show up to be concerned about the dysfunctionality of this board for over a year. And now all of a sudden, we're concerned. It's good maybe that we're concerned, but we need to be concerned consistently. I have mixed feelings about what Mr. Brown wrote. On one hand, I recognize through the Bill of Rights, First Amendment to the Constitution, that he has a right to say whatever he thinks he wants to say. On the other hand, I would say that, being a member of a board like this, just like I'm a member of a different board in this county, that you have to be a little more circumspect. And if anything, I'd say that's the case where he didn't do a very good job. But I think we need to be consistent here. I recall when we had the meeting here and we had to vote for who was going to be the member at large. Mr. Brown did the right thing and nominated Carrie Bond and Judge Todd. In my opinion, the Democratic member at that time, Miss Casey Dix, did not do the correct thing, the obvious thing, which was to recommend Judge Todd and Mr. Carrie Bond. Politics were played then. I also am a little bit concerned about the fact that one of the members, and I wasn't at that meeting, voted not for the recall. I don't think that was appropriate. I remember Judge Nation saying that when you serve on this board, you serve all the citizens of Rockdale County. And I think we need to be consistent across the board in serving all the citizens of Rockdale County. Mr. Brown may have made a mistake, and I can understand that, but other mistakes have been made here too. And I think we need to remember that and go on.
Thank you, Mr. Rockdale, for your comments. Okay, we're going to move on to the next person, who is Cheryl Board. Ms. Board?
Members of the Board of Elections, good afternoon. Cheryl Board. The spirit of Rockdale is actually the train that runs through Old Town that goes from east to west and north to south. It carried the black coal from the hills that needed to heat this nation. It carried the supplies that laborers, immigrants, and slaves put there to go to the west. If a plane was needed to be built in Rockdale, and the white paint from the Revolutionary War was used, what was the cover? We need to remember that the Revolutionary War was about democracy and freedom of speech for all races, colors, and creeds. It needs the black, strong tires to help it take off and to land safely. It needs the black ID numbers to be identified for where it came from. The steps that are on the plane for people to get on and off of it have black stripes on it for sure footing. I could go on and on about the color and the value of colors and diversity. But the main thing of it is that it takes a rainbow, and it takes a spectrum of that rainbow to make this nation, to make this county to work. It does not need hot-tempered leadership to throw out statements, and certainly not someone to lead a party, to wear a head or wear a hat of leadership. Comments like those need to be left in the closet with the hoods and the scowls and sheets that go with it. And if those are truly the beliefs, then those people need to go back to the closets to where they belong.
Thank you, Ms. Board, for your comments. Okay, the next person is Garvin Haynes.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I will tell you, I served for 13 elections on this board and was very proud of the way this board conducted itself through all 13 elections. I know the bylaws. I know some of the Enabling Act and state law. And I'll tell you this, even our bylaws made it so that only the chairman could speak concerning the issues of any election. What Mr. Brown did was go and use elected officials' names and tie them with terrorists. That by itself is a reason in my mind for this board to use what is in the state law that gives you the ability to vote and send this issue to a judge to determine if this is just cause for is being taken off this board. The integrity of this board is crucial. Just like the hearings that you're going to have. Those are individual thoughts and decisions that you'll have to make about the voters in this county. And for Mr. Brown's, in my opinion, most racist letter I've read in 20 years, puts a black mark on this whole board. If y'all don't have the courage, and I'm assuming everyone at this board will have the courage, to take this on a vote and allow a judge to determine if this is out of order for any member of this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes, for your comments. The next person is Lynn Brown.
Afternoon, y'all. I'm First Vice Chair of the Republican Party. I've been authorized by our chairman, Don Williamson, to read this short note at this meeting of the Board of Elections voter registration. In response to the Rockdale Democrat Party chair requesting our representative to the BOE VR resign, please note the following. 1, Johnny Brown has a right to a personal opinion as an individual and will continue to do so until Obama signs another executive order taking that away as well. 2, to everyone that has made the same remarks and request that Mr. Brown should resign, you seem to have the uncanny ability to make the association that Johnny Brown is speaking for the Republican Party. Some have gone as far to state that this is a Republican Party problem. We do not subscribe to the group or herd mentality and maintain that Mr. Brown wants to state a personal opinion that is not speaking for the Republican Party in any manner, shape, or form. And that's the end of from Don Williamson, our chairman. And my personal opinion as Lynn Brown, private citizen, is everyone so far, about half who have made statements have made racist or racism. There was nothing in that story racist. Racism, the definition of racism is the belief that race accounts for differences in human character or ability and that a person is superior to others. 2 is discrimination of prejudice based on race. That was not racist, according to Webster's. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Brown, thank you for your comment. The next person is the Reverend J. Philip Baker.
Mr. Chairman, to the board, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. First, I'd like to say that my linkage or my heritage goes back in Rockdale County, those 160 years. My family is one of the founding families of this county for 160 years. I'm also very proud to say that for all those years, we've been part of this community. My family has in various capacities. I actually pastor the church now that my grandfather started 140 years ago. So it's a very big honor for me to go back home and to pick up the mantle to be a part of this county. I was born and raised, went to high school, educated. My first son was born in this county, bought my first house in this county. Everything I did first happened here. So I've got a long history. One thing that it really hurts me today, out of all these years to sit in Rockdale County and see the divisiveness that has happened to our community. It's not just a white issue or a black issue. It's an issue in all of our communities. It's racial, it's economic, it's political, it's religious, and it's very blatant. It bothers me as a citizen of this county. I'm an independent, not a registered Democrat or Republican. I don't vote skin color, don't vote party. I vote for the person that I feel that is most qualified for that position. Well, I was very hurt when I listened to the letter coming from the Republican Party concerning Mr. Brown, because there were several candidates that I openly supported in our community that were part of the Republican Party. But when you align yourself with racism or ignorance, if not racism, you align yourself with that, it questions me, will I continue to vote with Republican Party on Republican issues? The comments that were made by Mr. Brown, if not racist, they were ignorant. They did not substantiate what I feel that the majority of this community believes. And I think, and I want to say too, since we address these issues to our chairman, that if he allows Mr. Brown to sit on this board unchallenged, and if this board allows it to happen, it not only impedes upon the credibility of Mr. Brown, but also I have to question the integrity of each individual member that sits on this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Baker, for your comments. Pastor Luke Boswell.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Elections, citizens of Rockdale. I too am really dismayed by the comments in the letter. And I was listening to the young lady speak about it not being racist. And in the ending statement, the words that were written, it says here that the spirit of Rockdale that had survived for 160 years had crashed, naming, I'm assuming, the Republicans, Hill, Harrison, Ray, BOE, Brown, Horn, and Coggins perished instantly. The only survivor was Wigington. He was in critical condition. The doctor said if Wigington could make it to 11 p.m. Friday, he would have a 95% chance of surviving. But even with all hope and prayers that was in everyone's heart, that was not to be. Wigington joined his other crew members at 10:30 p.m. Friday night. The little plane, white plane, known as the Spirit of Rockdale, was to be no more. Oh, there will be another plane, a shiny black one, but it's not painted with high quality paint. Odin, Oz, and Wilson's are painted with, instead of carrying commerce, manufacturing, education, and a future for our children and grandchildren, the only thing it would carry is crime, incompetence, cronyism, and corruption. You know, I look back at my moving here 16 years ago, and I remember how Rockdale County helped me in a lot of ways. The church that I built here, it took the planning and zoning, which was not black. It took the fire chief, which was not black. And it took a builder that was not black to bring about that establishment. I just did a funeral on Monday for a very dear friend of mine whose name I don't have to call, but that entire congregation was white. It does not matter to me. When I got shot and left for dead on the streets of Chicago as a deputy sheriff, it was a white police officer that came to my rescue. I was so bold as I wanted to know the blood that they was putting in my body when they did a transfusion. It came from a white man. Enough is enough is enough. We got to stop sugarcoating what is obvious. We got to stop pretending like racism don't exist, because it does on both sides. But someone said that a person has the freedom of speech. I remember a certain white pastor that also had the freedom of speech that was offered to come to speak at the inauguration. But because of comments he made years ago, he decided to step down because those comments were considered to be biased and racist. You see, no, the board should not have to vote for this young man to remove himself. If he really cared about the spirit of Rockdale, he would remove himself. That's what people do that have conscience. That's what people do that care about the true big picture of what's going on in our community. You don't wait for folks to throw you out. You don't wait for a judge to throw you out. You remove yourself and show that you are repentful, that you are sorry for a comment that was made that obviously has infuriated a group of individuals. And fortunately, unfortunately, I believe in this last election, it was not just black that voted our elected officials into office. I'm sure if I did a poll of all the votes, there was a whole lot of white people that voted for these individuals that are in office. So all I will say is, the Word of God says that we have to be careful what comes from our mouth, because The word says death and life is in the power of the tongue. Don't get it twisted, not life and death. It says death and life is in the power of the tongue. And therefore, what has been spoken is death that only God can revive. So I ask the board to use the Spirit of God in making a decision that is going to better the whole community of Rockdale County and not one individual. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Boswell, for your comments. All right, Kerry Bond, you're up again.
I would just like to thank the Board of Elections and Voter Registration in Rockdale County for the job that it does for all the citizens of Rockdale County, regardless of color, creed, party. Y'all do what the law says y'all can do, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else who's not filled out a speaker card would like to say something? Yes, ma'am. Why don't you stand up and come forward and make your announcement? Can we waive the requirement that she fill out a speaker card?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Need to state her name for the record.
All right, ma'am, if you could just step forward and state your name for the record. Come on forward.
My name is Jacqueline Johnson.
Jacqueline Johnson
Dixon.
Dixon.
And I moved here 3 years ago. I'm doing what my husband told me not to do. But I feel that it's imperative that I speak. It was with great sadness when I moved here to Georgia. It was against the wishes of my son, because my son said to me, "Ma, it's so dangerous down there." And then he said, "Those people hate us." I said, "Well, what people?" He said, "They have no respect for us. They don't think that we're worthy of life," and all these other negatives. And I told him that this was supposed to be the New South. And then, with a great deal of sadness, I read the letter, the story about the little white plane. I'm a storyteller, and it started off kind of interesting until I began to read and realize that it was a letter full of hate, spewing hate about me and mine, and untruths. And I just kept thinking, in order for this community to survive, white and black, we have to put down what used to be and pick up what is to be. We don't have room for negative comments. We do not have room for negative action. And when we look at all that this wonderful country, boy have I changed, I asked to call it wonderful, this wonderful country has achieved, it has taken all of us, those of us of African ancestry. Oh, wait a minute, that's everybody in this room, isn't it? Is that everybody in the room? But those of us of recent African ancestry and those of us of recent European history, it's taken all of us to build this great, great country. And in order for Rockdale County to rise and be the county that it can and it should be, remember, our children are listening and watching. We have to put down what used to be, because it used to be, and pick up what is to be. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your comments. Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to exercise my prerogative as chairman. Yes, sir. What was your name, sir, please?
My name is Pete McDaniel.
Pete?
P-E-T-E McDaniel.
McDaniel. All right.
Yes. My wife and I moved to Rockdale County, I guess, about 7 years ago. I was about my business today when I received an email that really disturbed me. A little bit about my background. I'm a storyteller also. I'm a writer by trade. Written several bestsellers. Settled into Rockdale because it's a peaceful place. I thought for sure that it was a place for equal opportunity, and I found it to be such. This letter, this blatant attempt to sugarcoat this election process has really upset me. I have 13 grandchildren, and I cannot believe that we live in a society in 2013 that fosters this kind of racism. I can't believe it, and I won't accept it. I believe, just like the Reverend said, that Mr. Brown should resign. Shouldn't be forced out. He should resign. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, what I started to say was that I was going